Welcome back, Danjo Capital Community. We are live with the CEO of Margarita Finance, Mr. Matias, if I pronounce that correctly, sir. Can you
Correct.
please introduce yourself and let me know?
Hey, Danjo, and very nice to be here on the show. Thank you very much for having me.
Mhm.
I'm Matthias. I'm the CEO and the co-founder of Margarita Finance. We've started this many years ago with the foundations for what is Margarita Finance now, and I'm looking forward to talk you through this a little bit today in this show.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for your time. So, for my first question, Mr. Matias, can you tell us a bit about your journey into the world of finance and how you transitioned into Web3?
Yeah, sure. So actually, I started after my studies, where I studied mathematical finance here in
Mhm.
Switzerland, on a trading floor for an investment bank in London.
Mhm.
And I was trading derivatives and structured products.
Mhm.
And soon realized that I'm not going to grow old in a big bank, and actually wanted to become a bit more entrepreneurial, and then did my MBA at the University of Oxford in the UK, and first heard about Bitcoin in 2013, that was. And I met up with the Winklevoss brothers back then, who are former alumni of the business school there as well, and Mike Novogratz, who was just setting up Galaxy. And I was looking into crypto or Bitcoin derivatives, actually. I wrote a paper on this. Was a bit too early in 2014. No one really cared about derivatives on
Yeah.
Bitcoin. Everyone thought it was a bit crazy. I then went on into, scaling up fintech companies for about 5 years, and
Mhm.
then joined into my first Web3 role about 4 years ago. Um, and then, yeah, sort of been in that space since, mainly in fast growth companies that, deploy decentralized finance. And, we've built sort of the infrastructure for what is Margarita Finance now, for many, many years, to issue structured products and securities directly as a token on the blockchain. And yeah, I'll go into a bit of detail later on, but that's sort of how I transitioned from traditional finance into Web3.
Wow. Just listening from your background, MBA from Oxford. Oh my goodness, is very nice credentials. Anyway, moving forward,
Thank you.
sir, having worked in both traditional finance and Web3, what excites you the most about blockchain powered finance?
Look, I think it's definitely like sort of the speed and the accessibility. So the
Mm-hmm.
speed, you can clearly see, like, whenever you try out Margarita Finance, you can issue financial products within
Mm-hmm.
seconds, right? Which is still today in traditional finance unthinkable, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you can actually issue a financial product which is fully tailored to your personal preferences by the press of a button, which, if you think about it, in the world that we live in today with AI, you would expect to be normal, right? Even
Mm-hmm.
payments were not real time until, a couple of years ago. Like a couple of years ago, you sent the bank transfer, it took 2 days, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, luckily, payments are digital, but actually, securities and investment products are not really fully real time. And that's, of course, very cool about Web3,
Mm-hmm.
that you can make these things fully real time. And the second part is the accessibility, right? Where we basically enable now these type of products, which typically have only been accessible to very, very wealthy individuals, with millions of dollars on their bank account,
Mm-hmm.
trading these products at least in, hundreds of thousands of dollars. We can make them as accessible starting from like $100, like from much, much lower entry levels because of
Mm-hmm.
tokenization, right? And that's the two things that really excite me. It's basically cheaper, faster, better.
Mm-hmm. So, what inspired you to launch Margarita Finance and what problem are you aiming to solve?
Yeah, actually, going back where I started more than 10 years ago at
Mm-hmm.
Oxford, where I was looking into building where I started my career in derivatives, so
Mm-hmm.
options, futures, etc., on top of cryptocurrencies. I think that really inspired me back then, and it took a while, right? Like, the whole market has been evolving, and I wasn't, full time in Web3 until 4 years ago. but at the same time, I always knew that that was the next generation. So, you had cryptocurrencies, you had blockchain technology as a more general use case, and then there will also be more, financial products on the blockchain, and you
Mm-hmm.
can make them linked to cryptocurrency as well, again, of course. So then you have natively on-chain crypto derivatives, and that's basically what we built with Margarita Finance. We make it much simpler for the user. So you don't need to know what a derivative is. You don't need to know what an option or a strike or a barrier is. The only thing is you need to know is like, what currency do you want to invest? Like, do you want Bitcoin, ETH, and Solana? And how much yield do you want? And we actually
Mm-hmm.
build the perfect product for you that is within your risk appetite. So we also show you how much risk you're taking if you're going for a high yield, because we believe that, DeFi has for far too long been all about like crazy yields that actually don't deliver because they're issued in like, native tokens that then crash to zero and don't have much intrinsic value. So we
Mm-hmm.
actually only do it on the big three cryptocurrencies, and we give you a yield that is actually much higher than typical staking yield, but we also show you what the risk is. For example, you might give
Mm-hmm.
away some of your upside, right? So, for example, you could do like a cover call strategy, which we call a crypto booster. So you invest one SOL today, and you get 30% APY in a year's time. As long as Solana stays below $200. If it goes above $200, you basically, the risk is that you sell at 150 today's value, right? So it's sort of like you know what your risk and your return is. So you're
Mm-hmm.
swapping maybe some of the upside for a higher yield, right? So you know sort of what your um, risk return is, and that's the only thing you need to understand. You don't need to understand the mechanics and the details behind it. But the important difference is we're a fully regulated platform, so it's fully regulated securities that we issue, and it's fully on-chain verifiable all the transactions that run in the background.
Right. So you mentioned a lot of things there which are significant. So how does Margarita Finance differentiate itself from traditional DeFi platforms?
Yeah, I would say I already touched a bit on that. So we're really bridging TradFi and DeFi, right? So the type of products that we offer are like Wall Street type of very sophisticated products that normally only like very big hedge funds, crypto foundations, treasuries, etc., had access to, and we're bringing it to the everyday investor, to the normies out there, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's already a differentiator already. Like there are sophisticated products, um, they're bridging sort of TradFi and DeFi, but we're making them accessible to a DeFi audience, right? And in that way, it's also all very transparent in terms of like how these products work, how the yield is generated from the volatility, from the underlying volatility, because these are typically hedging products, right? So you're taking like a hedging side and earning a premium for it. Uh, and it's all very well legally documented as well. So if you go to Margarita Finance, you can connect the wallet, you can price your products, you can design your own products. You will always see a legal documentation for it as well. So these products, different to the traditional DeFi platforms, are fully regulated and enforceable in the real world as well. So if there's any
Mm-hmm.
issue with the product, then you can actually go to a court and enforce it as well. So that's the really nice thing. They're bridging TradFi and DeFi.
All right, so it's bridging TradFi and DeFi, guys. By the way, the links will be on the description below for those of you who want to check out Margarita Finance. And sir, your platform introduces yield boosters. Can you please break down how they work for someone unfamiliar with structured products?
Yeah, exactly. So that's why we already call them yield boosters. That's much easier to understand than structured products, or the most common actually is called a barrier reverse convertible, a real tongue breaker. I find it. So we could just call them yield boosters. So how do they work? Again, told you, you invest, let's say, $100, and you say how much yield do you want to go for? Let's say 40%, and as
Mm.
low, and we'll tell you what is your safety buffer. So as long as, for
Oh.
example, Solana doesn't drop below $100, right? You will get 40% APY, right? If it
Mm.
drops below $100, you get converted into Solana. So your $100 USDC will get converted into Solana. That's the risk basically you're taking. So
Mm.
that's exactly how a yield booster works. Then we launched another one, which is a crypto booster, where you're not investing we're not getting yield on USDC, but you're
Mm-hmm.
actually getting yield natively on Sol, ETH, and also on BTC. And on BTC, we work then with Wormhole as a bridge because our platform is fully natively built on Solana. So if you actually hold BTC, you hold ETH, you can swap them to the Wormhole bridged version on Solana and earn directly yield on BTC, which of course is typically harder to access.
Wow, that's amazing. So, why did you choose to build Margarita Finance on Solana instead of other blockchain networks?
So for us, it was clear that, like 6 months ago, end of 2024, we had this meme coin frenzy, right? And like thousands of meme coins launching every day on Solana. And while this was sort of interesting and fun to see,
Uh-huh.
in crypto, you always get sort of the speculative end of the spectrum that drives innovation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it showed us really that Solana has the throughput and the scalability to issue tokens at large scale. And that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what we're doing with customized yield boosters, right? Because we're actually issuing tokens, but as securities directly on chain, right? And these tokens then can be distributed or issued at large scale. And that's sort of what showed us that this platform, this infrastructure is really scalable and of course low cost as well, right? So it that then you actually bring down the entry hurdle. If it's not like, gas fees of $50 for a product that is worth $100, then, it doesn't really make sense. If the gas fee is like, a couple cents, then of course
Makes
it makes
sense.
sense to do these highly customizable versions of these products.
All right. So, what is next for Margarita Finance? Any upcoming developments, partnerships that we should watch out for?
Yeah, sure. So
Mm-hmm.
actually, we have something very exciting coming as soon as really this week.
Mm-hmm.
So we are launching now we have these products that people can customize themselves, but now we're launching, let's say, an AI-based stablecoin on this. So it's
Mm-hmm.
basically an agentic portfolio manager, fund manager that manages a portfolio of these yield boosters for you. So you don't even have to worry about it. You just choose an expected yield. So whether you want 20% expected APY, 40% or 60%. And then these will just be a self-appreciating token. So basically
Oh.
it's a bit like the USDY token, like
Mm-hmm.
the money market funds, but a bit more exciting than 4% yield. So you can choose 20, 40, or 60%. Of course, there's some risk
Mm-hmm.
around it as well. So because you have volatility in that strategy, but it's basically you don't need to create the product even yourself anymore. AI creates it for you, manages for you, rolls it on a weekly basis, and then you get just a yield from that volatility that you're basically selling into the market.
Wow, fantastic. So guys, make sure you check it out. You can be updated about that by following them on X, obviously. And they also have social media links on the description below. So just click it, guys. You will be redirected automatically to their website and social media channels. Mr. Matthias, before we end this video, do you have final words or thoughts for our audience? Please tell it right now.
No, look, I think if you're excited about, yield products in DeFi and you want
Mhm.
to have something, trustable and fully verifiable, then check out Margarita Finance. This is definitely your place to go. And yeah, happy to have you as followers and enjoy our product.
All right.
Thanks
Guys,
for
the
having me.
links below. Thank you, Mr. Matias, and have a nice day, guys.
Yeah, you too.